Hey there musicians, are you struggling to get your music heard by record labels? Are you struggling to get a response? Well, I'm here to tell you that you are not alone, to look at why that might be happening and, more importantly, what you can do about it today to get your music heard by the record labels that you love. Now, there are a few reasons why record labels might not be listening to your music, and in this video I'm going to explore those reasons and give you some actionable tips to get noticed. Firstly, it's important to recognize that record labels get bombarded with new music every single day, and the bigger the label, the more music they receive. They get countless submissions, demos and pitches from new musicians all over the world all the time, and that number is increasing as more and more people get access to the means to make music and the means to distribute it through the internet. So it's not necessarily that your music isn't good enough or worthy of attention, it's just there's a lot of music getting sent to these labels. So firstly, if you felt frustrated and even thought of giving up music because you haven't heard back from labels, just let me know in the comments below. It'll help everyone else to realize that they're not alone. I've been there many times. I've had music accepted and released by record labels, I've had music rejected by record labels, and I've had the worst thing, which is just crickets, where you don't hear anything back. Feel free to download my record label email templates that have been developed over years and helped some of my accelerator students get signed to some of the world's biggest labels. You can use these templates, switch out for your own details, and it's really going to help you. So, before we dig into these tactics, there's one fundamentally important principle that you have to understand, and any attempt to get around this principle will only result in frustration and failure. So listen up. Most new producers send music to a record label because they want something. They want to get released, they want to build a following, they want to make money from their music. Now, of course, this is natural, we all want that. But if you approach it solely from this perspective, you're making your life much, much harder. Let me explain. The fundamental shift is to switch your thinking from what do I want to what do they want? How can I help them? And when you switch to this perspective, everything becomes so much easier and more enjoyable, and it becomes easier to take criticism and feedback without taking it so personally. So with that in mind, let's look at it from their perspective. What do record labels want? Well, they want to have music that their audience listens to and buys so they can keep the lights on and keep growing their record label. They want to work with people who are reliable, who make fantastic music, who are enjoyable to work with, because releasing a record and promoting it takes a lot of time, attention and money. So they want to keep growing the investment they make in you. So with that essential core fundamental principle touched upon, let's dig into the specific reasons record labels aren't listening to your music and the tactics for how you can quickly solve that problem. The first reason is your music simply isn't good enough yet. Now, I say yet because if you keep producing and practicing, your music will be good enough. But a common mistake new producers make is they create a track or they create a loop and they think it's really good and they want it to get signed. But that's absolutely impossible because you haven't yet had enough practice to make music that is good enough. Now, this isn't a problem apart from if it disheartens you to the degree that you want to give up. But in and of itself, it's not a problem. In fact, it's essential. Every professional music producer's first track was nowhere near good enough to get signed, nor was their first 10. So what can you do about it? The first is to finish at least 10 tracks to completion from when you start producing. Even better, 20 tracks. Now this might take you a year, but that's okay, because you love the process of music production, right? But if you start firing off ideas before they're ready, you run the risk of alienating yourself from the record labels, getting frustrated and disheartened, and ultimately giving up, and you really want to avoid that. The second thing you can do is reference the music on your target label, and I'm going to touch upon your target label in a couple of minutes. But you really want to listen very carefully to the other music that's being released on the record label. This will help you determine what your music needs to have to appeal to that label, and if you do this in detail, it will help you improve as a producer faster than any other method. Number 3 is seek feedback from the right people. Now, I say the right people because if you ask your mum if she likes your music, she'll probably say yes because she's your mum. If you ask your mate who listens to rock music if he likes your house music track, even if it was the best produced house music in the track in the world, he's probably going to say no because he doesn't like house music. So where can you seek feedback? Well, seek feedback from producers who make the music you're making, or at least understand music, so they can give you specific actionable feedback. You can use websites like Submit Hub, you can join different Discords, you could join my music production accelerator where we give detailed personal feedback each and every week. There's a wealth of opportunity for getting good feedback nowadays. And if you keep your eye on your goal of serving that record label the best way how, it will allow you not to take the feedback so personally, because you know ultimately it's going to help you help them. And number 4 is simply be brutally honest with yourself. Is your music good enough? when you compare it to the other music on that label, how does it sound? Has it got the same kind of sounds? Is it working melodically and harmonically? Of course, if you haven't been producing for long, it can be hard to determine the specifics as to why it's not good enough, but you should be able to have a pretty good idea as to whether it's good enough or not. Okay, the second reason record labels aren't listening to your music is that your music isn't right for that label. Now, I know lots of A&R people and record label owners, and one of their biggest frustrations is when people send them music that is so obviously not right for their label. And this makes you look like a bit of an idiot, to be honest. So you need to do the research. What kind of music is that record label releasing? Who are their listeners? What do the listeners want in the music? And this comes to this notion of shotgunning. A lot of producers will just send their music out to multiple labels all at the same time and just hope that someone's going to pick it up. But focus is the key here, like being a sniper. The more focused you can be on the specific label you want to release on, the more your efforts will be focused on the right kind of communication, the right kind of music production, and everything will happen much quicker for you. So what I recommend to my students is picking 3 labels, your first absolute dream label, and then 2 more that you'd be really happy to release on. All releasing music in a similar genre so you can focus your production skills in one genre. Now, researching labels can be a fun process. If you go into the places where you would usually buy music, like Beatport or TrackSource, Juno, or even listening to it on Spotify, you can figure out what labels are releasing what kind of music, what artists are releasing on those labels too, listen to other music by those artists, just get a feel for the ecosystem around your target labels. And this makes your job much easier because then you've only got 3 labels that you're going to be approaching. The third reason record labels aren't listening to your music or getting back to you is that maybe you just don't have enough music. Now, as we've talked about already, record labels are making an investment in you and they want to know that you'll have regular music finished so they can release it regularly. Once a month is absolutely fine, but you don't want to be producing just 1 or 2 tracks a year. And if you've got 3 really good tracks all targeted towards a particular record label in your bunker, then when they do come back to you and say, oh, we like this track, they're almost certainly going to ask if you've got anything else. And then you can say, yeah, sure, I've got these other 3 tracks. That's instantly going to put you way above most of the submissions they get. It also gives you a bit of wiggle room because if they do release your track and they want to start releasing them regularly, sometimes it can be a bit stressful if you're panicking going, oh, now I have to write a track. If you've got 3 already finished and ready to go, then it gives you a little bit of wiggle room. Okay, number 4, and this one isn't so big, but it could be that your image online is weak. Ultimately, the music will speak for itself, but all record labels will check your social media profiles. So you want them to all have the same branding. If you haven't designed a brand yet, you could use a website like Fiverr to work out a logo and visual style for yourself, and then just make sure that your social media profiles all match each other. You don't need to look incredible here, but if you've got a brand that already kind of fits in to the other musicians on that label, it's going to make it easier for them to say, yeah, we could see this guy or girl fitting in really well with our releases. Having a brief profile paragraph about your music and you as an artist is a good idea as well, because you can just put that couple of lines on each of your profiles. But don't write a whole essay about your life, just a couple of lines stating what you're about and what your music's about. Reason 5 record labels aren't listening to your music, that your communication was off in the initial email or DM or however you reached out to the label. And there's a few things we can do about this. The first thing is that labels, like all of us, have an ego, and if you can stroke that ego a bit in a genuine fashion, it's only going to help you. So labels want exclusives. So if you send your track to a label, make sure that it's exclusive to them, at least from their perspective, and I'll touch upon that in a second. So you want a private SoundCloud link without a play count on it so they can see they're the first people to be listening to it, and then you can tell them in the email that this is an exclusive track that you just want to release on their label. Now, the issue with that is if it takes them 3 or 4 weeks to get back to you and then they say no, well, all of that time's wasted. So what you can do, and it's a bit naughty, but you can reach out to all 3 labels simultaneously, each give them the exclusive with their private link, and then ultimately if 2 of them get back to you wanting to release it, that's a good position for you to be in. But if you just send a public link to a label, they aren't going to want to release it because the public can already listen to it. Another thing not to do in the email is just send the MP3 or the WAV file. It's so annoying. I know, I receive hundreds of emails every day, and when my inbox gets filled up with MP3s and WAV files, it just annoys me. So something that I found works really well, and again, you can download my email templates below this, send your private SoundCloud link, make your track downloadable so they can either stream it or download it if they want, and you could even include a link to the file in Google Drive or a Dropbox choice as well. So then they have the option. You want to make it as low friction as possible for them to listen to your music. And sometimes it might just be submitting it to the demo Dropbox on their website. But you'll know that already because you did your label research, right? Now, when it comes to the emails, you want to put your best foot forwards. So 1, we've stated it's exclusive to their label because we love the label and everything they're doing. 2, we're making it as easy as possible for them to listen to the track. And 3, we want to put our best foot forwards. And for the bigger labels, having some leverage will really help get their attention. By that, it might mean other releases on other labels. It might mean DJ support. So if you've got a video of a DJ playing your track, having a link to that video can be a great idea. If you've got any accolades at all, whether you've hit a certain amount of streams, whether you've been featured on a Spotify playlist, this is stuff to briefly mention to convey that you've got something a bit more to offer than most people that send them emails. It's like going on a first date. If you go on a first date, you want to present yourself well, you want to be the best version of yourself. It's the exact same thing when we're reaching out to record labels. Always thinking, how do I make it as easy as possible for them to say yes? And if it is a bigger label and they don't get back to you, maybe you just need to get on their radar. So keep on working, keep on releasing music, start accruing these accolades, so next time you reach out to them, you can be on their radar and stand out a bit more. Okay, number 6 is if you're not hearing back from labels, you could just have been lost in the shuffle. It does happen. As I said, I receive a lot of emails nowadays, and sometimes things do just slip through the gaps. So find out what the record label's response time is if they state it on their website, wait 2 weeks, and then send them a little nudge email. If it's 4 weeks, wait 4 weeks and send them a little nudge email. With the bigger labels, I like to leave it 4 weeks because I know how busy they can be. And if you've followed up 3 or 4 times and you still haven't heard back, I take that as an indicator they're just not interested. But sometimes you might nudge them 2 or 3 times, and then in 4 months' time, they do get back to you. The bigger the label and the more busy they are, the more likely that is to happen. Okay, the 7th reason that record labels might not be getting back to you is because their release schedule is simply full. Now this is kind of a wild card because it's to a degree out of your control. If they've already got their releases scheduled for the year, there's not much you can do about it, apart from 2 things. The first, keep on building your network. DM some of the people who work for the label. Follow the other artists who release for that label. Share their music, get into conversations with them. All of this will help you get on the record label's radar. So that's the networking side of things. The second is to just become so good that they would be stupid to say no to you. Be such a clear benefit to them in terms of the music that you're making that they will make time and space for you. Remember, ultimately they want to work with excellent artists who are reliable, easy to work with, and are in it for a long relationship with them. Be that person and they will say yes. Okay, I'm just adding this as an afterthought because I thought it was so important, but with regards to networking, in person is always better. So if you go to a club night that the label is putting on, or even better, if you go to a music production conference like the WMC in Miami, ADE in Amsterdam, or the BMC in Brighton, which I'm actually speaking at this year, then you can meet label owners in person. They often do demo drops. In fact, I once took part in a demo drop at BPM in Birmingham. I was approached by one of the judges. I then became the mastering engineer for his record label, and 2 years later, I was actually talking at the conference as well. So it's a fantastic opportunity to meet label owners and other people in the industry and just build your network. Okay, back to the main video. Okay, so getting your music listened to is one thing, but ultimately it's because you want to get signed to that label, right? Otherwise, why are we sending the music at all? Well, here are the exact strategies that I've taught that have helped hundreds of my students get signed to some of the biggest labels in the world. But before you click over there, if you found this video useful, don't forget to like it, subscribe to my channel for tips like this each and every week, and I'll catch you over at that next video where we are going to get you signed. You will go to the ball.